The man who drives a 1,000 horsepower Formula One car for a living uses a 65,000-pound electric SUV to go grocery shopping. One driver bought his dream car, drove it once, and crashed it right after buying it in Monaco. And one of them literally designed his own car from scratch, then paid full price for it because the manufacturer gave him zero discount. This is the F1 driver car tier list.
Hi, I'm stupid.
Oscar Piastri is the reigning Formula One world champion, earns around $20 million a year. He drives for McLaren while living in Monaco. Nobody knows what car he drives. Seriously, zero content about any car he owns. No new car day posts. His social media is exclusively Formula One content and occasionally his dog. The internet's best guess, based on one blurry photo, is that he drives a McLaren GT, the most discreet, understated, slightly boring McLaren currently in production. B tier, probably. Nobody actually knows. George Russell is a Mercedes Formula One driver. He earns roughly $15 million a year. His team makes some of the most desirable AMG performance cars on the planet. George Russell drives a Mercedes A-Class, not an AMG, not a GT, not a C63, a standard, sensible hatchback. The kind of car you see parked outside a Waitrose. The kind of car that comes with heated seats as a premium option. When asked about his car, Russell once said he doesn't really have a specific car in mind, and that he's not really a car guy. A Formula One driver, but not a car guy. C tier, which is generous. Carlos Sainz's first car was a Volkswagen Golf GTI. His father gave it to him at 18. He drove it all the way through his early F1 career, a man being paid millions by Ferrari, pulling up to events in a Volkswagen Golf. Then his collection grew. The Ferrari Portofino, the Ferrari Roma Spider, the Ferrari Purosangue for daily duties, the McLaren 720S during his time at McLaren. But here's the part that matters. The first car Sainz ever bought himself, with his own money, the one that meant something, was a fully customized Ferrari 812 Competizione V12, 819 horsepower, one of the wildest road cars Ferrari has ever made. He had it built exactly how he wanted it and has barely mentioned it publicly since. Carlos Sainz, one of the most understated men on this grid, bought one of the most overstated cars Ferrari has ever produced, and then said nothing about it. A tier. Charles Leclerc is a Ferrari driver. Ferrari give him cars. Ferrari expect him to be seen in those cars. This is a contractual matter. So Charles Leclerc drives a Ferrari SF90 Stradale, a Ferrari Roma, and until recently, a Ferrari 488 Pista, which he used for daily errands around Monaco, the city where he was born. Then he crashed the 488 Pista.
Hi, I'm stupid.
Not on the track, on the road, in Monaco. He drove his Ferrari 488 Pista into a barrier in the streets of Monaco. Twitter to explain. I lost the brakes, the pedal went to the floor. Then he got the car fixed, and he kept driving it around Monaco. Charles Leclerc has crashed a Formula One car in Monaco more times than most people have parallel parked, but at least he's consistent with it. A tier. Sebastian Vettel won 4 consecutive Formula One World Championships. He has a reported net worth of around $140 million. He sold most of his supercars in 2021, a Ferrari Enzo, a LaFerrari, a Ferrari F50, multiple Ferraris, gone. Replaced by what? A bicycle mostly. Vettel famously started cycling to the track instead of driving as part of his environmental advocacy. But here's what makes it strange. Among the cars he sold was a Nissan GT-R Black Edition with 93 miles on the odometer. He had owned it for 10 years and never driven it. A car he'd had for a decade, sitting there, untouched, with 93 miles on the clock. Not a museum car, just a car he never used. Meanwhile, his actual daily driver in retirement? A Nissan Leaf, a 30,000-pound electric hatchback. Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, $140 million fortune, drives a Nissan Leaf to the shops. He also keeps a Volkswagen Bus T1 from the 1960s, which he has said he loves. A vintage camper van, parked in his Swiss farmhouse garden, next to the helicopter. B tier. Not an insult, just a deeply personal tier. Lewis Hamilton earns approximately $60 million a year. He has a collection worth an estimated 13 million pounds. He owns or has owned 3 Ferrari LaFerraris, a Ferrari 599 SA Aperta, a Pagani Zonda, various Mercs, and a collection of cars curated with an obsessive eye for design and rarity. But here's the thing, he sold almost all of it. In 2019, Hamilton sold his private jet to reduce his carbon footprint. The Pagani followed. Car by car, the collection shrank. Today, Hamilton's daily driver is a Mercedes EQC, an electric SUV, 65,000 pounds, the kind of car you see a mother of 3 driving. A man with a 13 million pound car collection drives a 65,000 1,000-pound electric SUV. He still has the Ferraris. The LaFerraris sit in his garage in Monaco, barely touched. His own admission, road cars feel slow after F1. The jump from a 1,000-horsepower F1 car weighing 800 kilograms to a normal car with electronic assists and normal steering is like going from a scalpel to a spoon. So, Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, arguably the greatest driver in history, spends most of his time in an electric SUV because nothing else feels fast enough to bother with. A tier, mostly for the Ferraris sitting in the garage. The electric microwave can wait outside.
Fernando Alonso races for Aston Martin. He was their driver. He was their ambassador. He wore their suits, drove their cars, attended their events. So when Alonso wanted his own personal car from Aston Martin, he assumed he would get a discount. He did not get a discount. "I'd hoped for an employee discount," he told GQ. "That was my wish, and I took it for granted, probably. I went through the specification and then looked for the discount. There was no discount, and by then, it was too late." What did he buy at full price? An Aston Martin Valkyrie, a $3.5 million hypercar designed by Adrian Newey with a 6.5-liter naturally aspirated V12 producing 1,155 horsepower. Alonso co-designed his own personalized spec satin racing green paint, AMR lime graphics, exposed carbon fiber interior, and a red anodized aluminum accelerator pedal engraved with the number 14. His race number, chosen on 14 July 1996, when he won a karting world championship at the age of 14. He paid $3.5 million, full price. Then he drove it around Monaco. But that wasn't even the craziest part. He then commissioned an entirely new model, the Aston Martin Valiant, road legal, track focused, 38 ever made. Born from a personal commission from Alonso himself, the factory described him as the first customer. He was also, presumably, the only customer who could say he invented it. And his daily driver? The Aston Martin DBX 707, a 200,000-pound SUV with 697 horsepower. Fernando Alonso's daily driver has 697 horsepower. S tier. Max Verstappen's first car was a Renault Clio, standard, small, French. He loved it. Then came the Porsche 911 GT3 RS, bought immediately after his first F1 race win in 2016. He called his dad to ask permission first. His dad was a former F1 driver. He said yes. Since then, Max has bought well over 10 other supercars to add to his collection. And then there's the Fiat Topolino. Max Verstappen and his girlfriend own a small blue electric Fiat Topolino together for navigating the narrow streets of Monaco. The most dominant racing driver of his generation, 4 consecutive world championships, earns $100 million a year, owns an Aston Martin Valkyrie, uses a Fiat Topolino to go to dinner. Video of Max and Kelly in the Topolino went viral. People loved it. Max loved it. A man who dominated 21 of 22 possible F1 races in a single season, finding pure joy in a tiny blue city car that tops out at 45 kilometers per hour. S tier. For the Topolino alone, Lando Norris owns 16 cars. He has said this himself on his own podcast. "I love cars. I sold some recently, so the number has gone down. 16 cars." For context, a standard Monaco apartment building has fewer parking spaces than Lando Norris has cars. His collection, a Ferrari F40, the last car Enzo Ferrari personally signed off on before he died. 1,311 were ever built, worth around 1.5 million pounds. A Lamborghini Miura P400, one of 762 ever made, which he called the car I am most proud of, and my first proper gift to myself. A Porsche Carrera GT with a naturally aspirated V10 and 0 electronic driver aids. A McLaren P1, a McLaren 765 LT, a restored Land Rover Defender, rebuilt from the ground up. 1,000 hours of labor, totally topless, seats 6. A chrome Shelby Cobra he drove to Silverstone and called the coolest. A black Liberty Walk Nissan Skyline GTR R32 in Kaito racer style that turned heads at the Japanese Grand Prix. And a Fiat 500 Jolly replica, a tiny open-air Monaco runabout, because apparently 16 cars need at least one that looks like a golf cart. He also once owned a Rolls-Royce Wraith, drove it, and said, "I hate it. I'm more scared on the road than I am in a race car." Lando Norris, 2025 Formula 1 world champion, scared of a Rolls-Royce, but perfectly comfortable in a 1.5 million pound Lamborghini with no roof and no safety net, built in 1966. There is only one spot in God tier. Lando's already parked in it. God tier. But what actually happens when an F1 driver buys a normal car? Daniel Ricciardo, at a charity event, was handed a $500 Holden Commodore to drive around a track. 22 years old, no power steering,
worn tires, and only one working window. He drove it faster than most people drive their daily cars. Sebastian Vettel, during his environmental phase, was asked to review the Nissan Leaf. He gave it a genuine, thoughtful, complimentary review. The man who drove a 1,000 horsepower Red Bull to 4 consecutive world championships called the Nissan Leaf practical and efficient. And Max Verstappen, on a racing sim live stream, was asked what car he'd buy if his budget was £500. His answer? A decent Renault Clio, because that's where I started. The greatest drivers in the world, put in the worst cars on earth, are still better at driving than everyone else, and that's the point.